The Connecticut Sun have been a constant for the last half decade. So how'd they get that way? I talked to Bree Jones and Kurt Miller about it. I'm going to share some of my thoughts as well. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal. Remind you can follow us on Twitter at Locked On WBB. Follow the work we are doing covering the great game every single day at thenexthoops.com. Thank you for making us your first listen. You can make sure to get every one of our podcasts, subscribe to Locked On Women's Basketball. And of course, subscribe to the incredible work that's being done at thenexthoops.com. $9 a month, $72 a year, over 100 reported pieces on women's basketball. You're just not going to find it anywhere else. But I want to talk to you about the Connecticut Sun, a team that I find absolutely fascinating. Simply put, I cannot exaggerate this, they have just been a real constant in this league. So let's try and get inside how and why they're able to be that way. You know, they have not gotten the number one overall pick since Shanae Agwume came back in 2014. Jonquel Jones, 6th overall pick. Alyssa Thomas was acquired in a draft day trade, in the Tina Charles trade, a trade they had to make. DeWanna Bonner comes in a deal. You know, it's just fascinating to me that this team has been able to put itself together as a consistent, excellent team year after year. And again, it's been a while, right? 2017, they were 21-13 into the second round of the playoffs. 2018, 21-13. 2019, one game from winning it all. I covered that game 5. They had an opportunity. They led in the third. 2020 was their down year, 10-12, but then it didn't matter. They made a run into the playoffs anyway. They've dealt with injuries, figuring out where and how Shanae Agwume could fit, figuring out what Alyssa Thomas was and is. Jonquel Jones, from 6th woman to MVP. And Bree Jones, who, full disclosure, I have loved as a player going back to her Maryland days. But for her to get to the point where she is an all-star and now being asked to come off the bench, it's real interesting, right? So let's take a listen to my conversation with Bree Jones when they came to town a couple days ago. If it comes with the loudspeaker, we'll do our best. So when Alyssa Thomas moved to the 4, Kurt talked about how it changed in a permanent way the way this team plays. I wonder, was it different when you got here, seeing the way AT plays as opposed to other 4s you've seen through the years and different places you've been, Maryland and so forth? What's that? Yeah, the way she plays as a 4, it seems to me like it's different in some key ways from the way anyone else does it.
Yeah, no, it's different. I mean, she pushes the ball a lot. She's a playmaker at the post position, but I've been playing with her since at Maryland, so I'm kind of used to it. I play with her overseas too, so like for me, it's like that's why I expect a lot of forwards to play. I've been around it a lot, so but it's different in the way that she's really aggressive. She can push it 94 feet. She's making plays for her position, so I think that's the biggest difference between her and with their fourth.
Has it influenced the way you play as well? Because I remember when I covered you at Maryland, and you were, very much a five in some fundamental ways, and Kurt has you doing everything, and you become an all-star doing it that way. Is it in part watching what she's done? I mean, you're a couple years behind her on that.
Yeah, no, definitely. She pushes me to be better, every day. And just watching her, and talking to her about the game and everything definitely helped me change my game and be able to adapt to the league. But I think the way Star has playing definitely has allowed me to be able to, not just be a five, not just play at every position. So I think it's definitely helped me grow my game and help me do some of the last couple seasons.
And then in terms of what you are now as a team, it's a good problem to have, but you have more stars than you have positions to be able to even start. How do you feel about it? And, how do you kind of adjust to that? You are somebody who has accomplished a great deal in this game at this point. You have been an all-star. You have done these things. How do you readjust to that, and how do you feel about it?
I know this year coming in, it was going to put AC back fully and JJ back. So everybody, we have the whole team that we were expected to have 3 years ago,
Exactly.
So, I kind of knew that I was coming off the bench at some point this season. So, for me, it doesn't change anything. I still prepare the same way for every game. I'm still trying to be a spark coming off the bench. So, I think for me, it's just having that mindset of, being ready at all times. So, for me, it's just when I come in the game, off the bench, for me, I'm trying to bring that spark, trying to bring that energy, trying to continue doing what I've been doing the past 2 years.
But it's kind of ridiculous in some way, right? I mean,
it's not a bad thing, though.
Right, it's not a bad thing. And I know Vegas did it with Erica, and she focused on winning 6th Woman of the Year. That was important to her. Yeah. Is that on your radar? Is that something you're looking at?
That's definitely on my radar, too. I'm looking to win 6th Woman of the Year, too, this year. I think that's something that's my next step, after winning Most Improved last year, being 6th Woman coming up the bench this year. I think that's something I'm definitely looking at.
Sure, and then I hear an MVP can come after that. So
that's what it looks like.
So that was Bree Jones, and of course, the Star Spangled Banner in the background. Pre-game, to give you an insight into how this all works, you have between 90 minutes and 60 minutes to talk to players, 90 to 60 prior to the game, and you grab the audio where you can, post games in the locker room, of course. So I think Bree Jones has a real good chance of winning 6th Woman of the Year, and it's an impressive thing, but I think it's also worth noting that this is somebody who has managed to develop, Brandy Poole does an incredible job as a lead assistant for Kurt Miller. The whole staff really in Connecticut does an incredible job. They do not get there by accident. Now, you know who else doesn't get there by accident? That would be Built Bar. They're constantly innovating. We've talked about how much I love the puffs. They have brownie batter puffs. I went ahead after yesterday's podcast. I ordered. I can't wait for them to come. I will tell you what they are like as soon as they are in my mouth, or after. I'm going to chew and swallow first. So go to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. That is code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at built.com. And as always, tell them Grandma Myrna sent you. So now I'm going to take you to Kurt Miller's fascinating extended conversation. We talked pre-game about how the Sun have gotten where they get to, how he makes decisions. He even teased a 4-bid lineup that we talked about yesterday with Harry Graham. And if you haven't listened to that, make sure you do. Really insightful about the Dallas Wings. So here is Kurt. Hope you enjoy. You are listening to Locked On Women's Basketball.
Own media life. I take care of my TV crib first. Own media life. I take care of my TV crew first.
Nice should.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Kurt's pregame media availability. Just raise your hand if you have any questions. We'll start in the room. Go ahead.
Hi, Kurt. Wanted to start with just a little talk about Alyssa Thomas's impact on other fours around the league. You're seeing it, this year with Jessica Shepard working in Minnesota as a not just a secondary creator, but often their primary creator, leading that team in assist percentage. Lorella Kavai did something real similar at Georgia Tech and is adopting a similar role. And I guess I wonder two things. One, how much you think AT's success has prompted that, and whether you're seeing, when you're running film of other teams, stuff you guys run being used by other teams as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts to that, Howard. I guess first and foremost, I view the power forward position as the best position in the world. When you think about the dominant players throughout this league that can play the four, and the dominant players that have versatility to their game. So the Candace Parkers and Alyssa Thomas come right to mind because they're the two best facilitating forwards in the league. But you also have Deladon that, facilitates in her own right. She may not go end line to end line all the time, but she's certainly capable. But she's a facilitator in the half court and the ball goes through her. Breanna Stewart is arguably the best player in the world, and the ball goes through her. She can dribble coast to coast. She's a facilitator. Asia Wilson, and the list goes on and on, Tina Charles, and you just can keep listing them around the league. I'm excited about the young talent, watching Alyssa Smith, do that already and see her going end line to end line or making decisions. And then I think, is it not only AT and a Candace Parker influence and, Stewie and EDD, but it's also an NBA influence where the game is moving to 5 out. The shape right now around the NBA is 5 around the perimeter with the ball in the middle of the floor with actions on both sides, or, there's actions to get the ball to the middle of the floor off of staggers. So this 5 out, wave from the NBA filters to the WNBA and on. And it's not a hard shift down to our league because of the talent we have in that position.
I just a quick follow-up if I could. Certainly there are so many talented forwards and so many forwards who are facilitating and also scoring. It does seem like AT is kind of her own particular game. And I guess I wonder whether you think that she's a different part of the tree, if we think of it, than Candace and Stewie and ED. And, if you see her as somebody who even is more of a pass first four, which I don't feel like we see very often.
Sure. And obviously she's not going to score outside of about an 8-foot radius, as we know. So she's not shooting like EDD and Stewie and all those guys, but she's attacking and is our engine and our facilitator. She truly is. I mean, you get this term all the time, a point forward, but she truly is a point forward. She is essentially at times on purpose our point guard without guarding point guards. We still have Jasmine Thomas or a point guard on the floor with her. Now, the tinkering gets to start for me, because this is the first time that we have everybody. If you put really good players on the floor, could you put Alyssa Thomas truly at the point guard position and still play DeWanna Bonner, Jonquel Jones, and Brianna Jones all together? Now you have 4 people over 6'2", with a lot of people over 6'5". Now, there's ways to counter that. We all know that, but that's the tinkering. That's my challenge now, is that I have to coach long-term for this season, and I've got to tinker all season, and I can't coach just to win a given night. I've got to tinker with some lineups so we get practice and look at it. And so at times I'm going to tinker in the middle of a game, might be when something's working. And, an average fan will be like, what the heck is he doing? But somewhere down the line, my tinkering, I hope the mad scientist, that we figure something out as the season progresses.
Go ahead, Ben.
2 questions. Ben Pickman for Sports Illustrated. One, just following up on what you just said to Howard. Is that something that you kind of communicated to your team that, sometimes even if something is working on a particular given night, that you might have to, mess with lineups, rejigger it, tinker with stuff?
Yeah, the big message is that, we've got to try different things. So I've talked a little bit about, the tinkering now. It's not going to be as easy to communicate that in the heat of the battle, because I got tremendously competitive players that don't want to lose. And so when we're calm and in a different environment, that is more of a conversation that we have to look at different ways to play. And they probably don't even know some of the things that are in my head that I want to explore. They might be like, what? And but we need to look at some unique, we have the ability to have some unique lineups. So we need to look at them.
Gotcha. Different figures to a different kind of trend. We know how difficult it is for rookies to make the W. But there's something this year. I think it's 7 or 8 rookies around the league are like 26, 27 years old or older, including Yvonne Anderson. And I guess I was going to ask you this: why do you think that is a trend? Why is there kind of this prevalence right now of kind of veteran rookies? What are they bringing around the league?
Obviously, when with any question, there's probably not one answer and one specific thing. I think that at times the international seasons have made it difficult for players to make it to training camp on time. And it's so hard to make rosters when you don't make it on time and you don't have any deposits in the bank that we've saw with them on other teams, or you've personally worked for them. It's remarkable that Yvonne made it, even coming late, but she made an impression with her poise and her steadiness. And then, the deposits that she earned through Serbia, and she earned in her international, competition. So, sometimes they should have been in the league earlier, but it's just a matter of not being able to get to training camps on time or not be able to get to training camps at all. The other thing is this hard salary cap plays a major factor in this, because you're constantly weighing out that 3+ year veteran now as a role player who may be $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 cheaper than a rookie. And then these experienced rookies that have played a lot of international ball, but maybe not have made a roster yet, now have more experience than a true rookie. They've played international basketball, they've played professional basketball, they've matured, but they're still cheaper. I still think the hard salary cap plays a big factor on this. And as agents are realizing, and now the league is realizing, the players are realizing it, if you're in the league more than 3 years and you're not in the top 8 rotation of a team, it is not easy to make a roster anymore. Like, as a role-playing veteran, that's been the casualty of the new CBA. We're paying our stars, and then you've got to balance that out with some more inexpensive players. So the role-playing veteran that clearly is talented enough to be in this league in a 9, 10, 11, or those teams that can carry 12 spot are disappearing. They're disappearing. And so the message is to veterans in this league: you better find yourself in the top 8 rotation or you're expendable. And that is playing into it. Sorry about my rant.
That's a good one. If I could take this to a bit of a different direction. So this is pretty general, but there's a discussion right now about how WNBA can explode into the popular culture world, intersecting with entertainment, just as, NBA players do. I'm curious as to, what you believe the future holds for the W when it comes to that intersectionality, and why you believe there aren't enough fictional adaptations of not only the WNBA, but women's basketball in entertainment. I know that's a lot.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I will tell you that I believe that these players, and we like to refer to it as 144, but we know it's not 144 anymore. So whatever that number is, have an enormous platform. And for the younger generation, many of them have learned how to use social media to build their brand. And so I believe that as a coach or a general manager, it's my job to help support, enhance, and help them grow their brand and put them in those positions. I really believe that it's going to only go up, and the visibility of our players, national commercials, there's going to be a trend. There has to be a trend. If companies out there are socially conscious that we need to invest in women, companies need to invest in women. It is a smart business decision. And so you're going to see more JJ State Farm commercials. You're going to see more of our players branded, and rightfully so. But some of that is their own doing because they've used their social media, they've used their platforms for as a league. We've used our platforms for change. We've used things in the right way. And so I just think the visibility of women's basketball, the visibility of the WNBA is going to grow. And I'm really excited for them and for us.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
One more. Yep.
Yeah, sure. Just off of Ben's question, I want to address the mad scientist Kurt comment that you made. What's the craziest thing you tried that worked over these past few years and has become a staple of what you guys do?
Oh, that's fun.
You know, out of a little bit of necessity, but something that we saw, obviously, the Chennai Achilles injury and missing the season, forced us to move Alyssa from where she played mostly three under Ann Donovan and was playing mostly three. People wondered if she was quite big enough to play the four. We moved her to the four, and things have never, nothing's been the same ever in Connecticut since. Like, it just allowed us to play a style that I love, and that we could be attacking with multiple people. We were playing downhill. We were playing out of pick and rolls, and she was rolling and things. So, the simple move of out of almost necessity, we're like, okay, let's try this. ATU on board? Yeah. She's like, yeah, I'll try it. And we've never looked back. Now, ironically, the first two games of the season, she's played almost predominantly three, and she's leading the league in scoring. So what do I know? What do I know? So we're going to move her back into the starting lineup at the four tonight. And most people are going to call us crazy because she's leading the league in scoring at the three, and I'm going to put her at the four tonight. And so, it's just, but that's the tinkering we've got to do. And her skill set allows us, and that's the fun part. And JJ's skill set now allows it. And we've got to get Bree Jones on the floor. And she's not starting tonight if we, get through warmups unscathed, but we're better when Bree Jones is on the floor with us. So we've got to continue to put her on the floor because she just is such an intelligent basketball player. One of the most underrated defenders in the league. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
So for what's ahead, we'll talk in a moment. But first, let's talk about BetOnline. BetOnline.net continues to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info, not just men's sports, the way you did at a lot of different outlets, but WNBA as well, along with the NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, even next year's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So the Sun, 2-1, entering what is going to be a fascinating weekend. A couple against the Fever. Fever get to measure themselves. We talked about the Fever in the podcast earlier this week. Really interesting team. Then they've got the Wings. It's an opportunity to take off. There are two-game series that I'm most interested in, May 31st and June 2nd at the Las Vegas Aces. Aces simply could not stay with the Sun last year. It's a very different Aces team and how they're playing. Tuesday, May 31st, Thursday, June 2nd. You're not going to want to miss that one. And you're not going to want to miss Locked On Women's Basketball every day. I thank you for making us your first listen. Now, make Locked On NBA your second listen. From the first jump ball of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the finals, Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. Locked On NBA. Make sure you check it out. I'm Howard Megdal. Thank you for listening all week. We will see you next week. Have a wonderful WNBA-filled weekend.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.